to Freshly Forever, a podcast that gives you fascinating insights week after week. Here's your host, Pragnya Kumar.
Hey folks, welcome to this special episode on podcast Freshly Forever. After the end of season 1, I have been doing some special episodes with a series of guests, and today happens to be with my own daughter, Pragnya Kumar, who is a junior tennis player proceeding to play NCAA collegiate tennis. So, welcome, Pragnya, to the show. So nice to chat with you here.
Hey, Mom. It's good to be here. I'm excited.
Awesome. So, why don't we start by telling listeners about your tennis journey and how it all began and what you would like to share on that? Because I guess the whole idea is to talk about a junior player's tennis journey and all the fun part and the challenges and the kind of the do's and don'ts up until the point, you even get to play collegiate tennis. So why don't we start with your journey and how it all began?
Yeah, so I started playing tennis, as you know, when I was 5. I first picked up a racket then. And as a child, I was involved in a lot of different sports, including like figure skating, which I think I did at the local club. And that was really fun for me. And then I also was doing things like rock climbing, swimming, just a bunch of things trying to get acclimated to everything and see what I liked best. And I immediately fell in love with tennis as soon as I started playing, picked up the racket. And yeah, I think ever since then, I just knew that's what I wanted to pursue full time. And then I started hitting in group classes, did some privates, and just really, really knew that was what I wanted to pursue.
Yeah, like you said, you were in a local suburban parks, figure skating classes, and in that program, and also, the tennis, swim, and everything. And matter of fact, I don't know how much you remember from it, but you were training with a bunch of boys at that time in that very nice club facility. And being in Chicago at that time, it was all indoor tennis. And from that point on, we transitioned and moved here to the Atlanta area. So, what is it that you remember from that experience as far as tennis, how it all began here in Atlanta, and what would you like to say to listeners on that?
Well, just going back to Chicago real quick, I remember all those group classes, and I think I really got more competitive, playing with the boys. And when I started beating them, I got a kick out of it, and that's when the coach really, really thought I had something. So yeah, we moved to Atlanta, and when I was 6, right, around 6, and just started playing a lot more. I did some private lessons in our neighborhood here with the coaches here, and really started like loving it. And then we transitioned to more academy classes, and then that's when before tournaments started playing some tournaments. And yeah, I just knew it was what I wanted to do.
Okay. What about the team tennis experience? I think that's where you started in terms of, actually playing competitive matches.
Yeah, team tennis was awesome. I remember just having so much fun, and I think that's when I kind of grew even more. Like I found myself more, and I knew I loved the sport even more, and just playing for a team, being with all these different people, I think really helped me enjoy the sport more. And then obviously getting matches in at that age, at that level, fostered my competitiveness, and then wanted me to, or rather made me want to start playing the local tournaments and just start competing more on a regular basis.
Okay, so that was the USTA team tennis. I mean, at that point, you were not even introduced to the ALTA, which is the Atlanta Lawn Tennis Association league matches. You were playing USTA team tennis. And then subsequently, you also did ALTA matches. what about the pathway for a tennis player, for a junior tennis player, for someone that's listening to this podcast and wondering, okay, where do I begin? How do I move on with it? And what do I do about it? What is it that you want to say to someone on that front?
I think, like I said, when I was younger, obviously you and Dad had me playing a lot of different things and just kind of um, dipping my toes in the water, seeing what I liked best. So I
Mm-hmm.
think for any young kids, just making sure that they really love it on their own, and you kind of see that inclination for them to go explore it, go want to do more of it. That's how it started for me, as you know. So I think that's a great place to start, and then just have them um, just really hit and kind of make it fun for them at the beginning, and then kind of put
Mm-hmm.
them in lessons and start training, and just keep it fun, at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning. Have them play those games and hit in with the coach and meet new people, make friends. That's the fun part about it. And then I think as you grow up, gradually easing into tournaments and kind of getting that experience will obviously take you to the next level
Mm-hmm.
later on.
Okay. What about the pathway? So you started in your experience, like you started with the 10 and under tennis, the orange ball, and then you started playing the 12 age group, the 14s, the 16s, and then finally the 18s. And you also did some ITFs. You did the USDA, the Alta, and all of that. So, what do you want to say as far as what they can expect in terms of a pathway? Of course, that over the last year, the point system, the rules, so many things have changed. But how was it for you with the different ball types and then playing the regular yellow ball?
So yeah, I started playing tournaments around 7, like
Mm-hmm.
pretty competitively. And so I think obviously, like you mentioned, there's the 10s through 18s. So
Mm-hmm.
10s, 12s, 14s, 16s, 18s. And in the 10s, we have the orange ball, which is it's like a less firm, it's more compression, softer on
Mm-hmm.
the hands, joints, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you progress from that. And then when I
And
was
it's
playing,
also a shorter court.
right, to shorter court. And
Mm-hmm.
then, so you move from the orange ball. And then when I was playing, they had like the green dot as well before
Mm-hmm.
you progress to the regular normal tennis ball.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how it is exactly now, but that always helped me kind of just develop my feel, develop my game. And then also, I think the court size aspect is very helpful too growing up, because you get used to that smaller space. And then
Mm-hmm.
as you transition to um, regular ball, you have more court to cover, more court to hit into. And I think as you grow up, it's a good kind of like, it's good to measure yourself along those lines, and
Mm-hmm.
it's good to grow your game.
Uh-huh. Know your boundaries, know your margins, kind of it helps you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there are times when we even, sometimes, even at the most recent tournament, like before an afternoon match, you had to warm up. And whenever the courts are busy, if you still find the short court, that's why you still try to go and get your feet moving, right? So there's still the fun side to it whenever we see the short court.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I have some of my best memories, from the tens, and those, it was really fun back then, for sure.
Hey, all those trophies, at that age when you start accumulating them, that's fun, right? So let's talk about the reward part of it.
Yeah, I was definitely in my prime in the tens.
I think that you certainly had your share of good matches even much after that, and so I think it's exciting because at that young age, you start to see the rewards as well, and that's also, isn't that a motivation, you think, to kind of go on to make progression and proceed to higher levels. And set yourself more goals and aspirations?
Sure. I think also it kind of helps you, like the sport teaches you, when you're little, all you want to do is win, which obviously that's
Mm-hmm.
the goal always. But
Mm-hmm.
you, as you play more and as you kind of watch more matches, you see that, oh, okay, there's so many different kind of aspects of what's happening. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
competing, but then you're also trying to work on your game and then see how that matches up against different types of opponents. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's like all these dynamics as you uh, get to see as you grow up. And I think when you put it all together, it's very rewarding to see it pay off and then see how your game has grown. And obviously your peers are also getting better. So
Mm-hmm.
doing what you need to do to match up against the competition. I think all of that is really it's hard work, but it's exciting when it pays off for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I think as parents and as spectators, I think we all have our own share of, like how exciting those times are. We, of course, sometimes it's a roller coaster, but hey, it's all part of the journey, right? What
Yeah,
about
especially those shady line calls, if you know what I mean,
no, but
from
no,
from the
we are going to get to the drama in sport because I think it is important to address that. But what would you say as far as what do you remember transitioning from that young phase um, to middle school, and then when do you remember knowing that okay, this is something that I want to pursue seriously? And I know you have always been a huge fan of Rafa Nadal and you have idolized him so much. I can tell sitting on the family room couch and, watching Rafa was always your go to thing even in your elementary school days. And so, what is it that you want to say as far as um, what goals you remember kind of, setting for yourself? And as you progressed along, like reality set in, right? So, what is it that you want to say toward that?
Yeah, I think obviously in elementary school when I was younger, like watching all the professionals play, especially Rafa, it was really inspiring. But I think it's kind of easy to get caught up in that fairy tale a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I transitioned to middle school, I definitely realized like all the work that goes into it, on
Mm-hmm.
the court, off the court with
Making
fitness
pro, yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
right and like fitness and having a good attitude and keeping yourself kind of in that mental space, in the right mental space. All of that is equally, if not more important, rather than just hitting balls and working on your game. So I think it was definitely a little bit of a reality check, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, I was also pretty motivated because I was like, okay, so this is what it takes, and it's all in my control. So it's just up to me as to how I work on it and how I take things forward. So it was pretty exciting, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you actually started focusing more on tennis as, a sport that you wanted to pursue very seriously. I mean, earlier you talked about rock climbing, figure skating, swim teams, and whatnot. You had a flavor for it all, but you kept regular at it in terms of, your involvement with tennis. But what about your transition to, again, middle school and the curriculum and the type of school that you chose? How, again, I think that kind of correlated with you and all of us kind of getting together and realizing that, okay, this is something that I want to go after more seriously, right?
Yeah, so I think from middle school on was
Mm-hmm.
when I was like really serious about everything, and I knew, like I said, I knew what all it took. And I was fortunate enough to go to a school that it's called Rivers Academy,
Mm-hmm.
for people who don't know. And I was just fortunate that we had something like that in our in the town here. And basically it's a school that lets you really put your academics first while still working on pursuing your passion, whatever that may be, if it's like sports or theater or anything else like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, obviously middle school is kind of that middle point
Mm-hmm.
as you transition. So it's kind of like you're figuring out things, you're growing up. There's all these different dynamics in it. And
Mm-hmm.
so when in my case I had tennis to balance as well, I think the school and the environment I was in really helped me keep all of that pretty balanced. And
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't ever super overwhelmed, like, oh, I have all this to do and then I have this tournament on the weekend, like how am I ever going to get through it?
Mm-hmm.
It was never really like that, and our teachers were great too. They always worked with us as to help us plan things ahead or come make up some tests
Mm-hmm.
after our tournaments. And so I think being in that environment really allowed me to not have to worry about school, but also focus on my game and tennis and how to start really taking it to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think, you talked about balance and you were able to achieve a good balance there. Again, totally not compromising on the academic side at all, still focusing on it. And thankfully for us, you have always been a great student and you kept up with both. And that's a great point to address there. And you talked about how you realized that there's so much to it than just hitting tennis balls, the mental side of it. And also, you mentioned shady line calls. How do you think you want to, what is it that you want to say toward the mental side of sport, you know spectator involvement, parental pressure or parental involvement, the coaches, whatever it is, and also the drama that we see out there, and how is it that one can cope up with all of that, like pursue with the passion in like a fair way, if you will.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of it is very hard being an individual sport. You kind
Mm-hmm.
of have to fend for yourself. You don't just have someone talking to you every, I don't know, every break or changeover or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone either supporting you or supporting the other person who's playing against you. Everyone is outside the fence.
Mm-hmm.
It's all pretty much up to you. So I think as a kid, there were a lot of things involved. Like I said earlier, the cheating and the line calls and things like that. But it all kind of stemmed more from parental pressure or coaching pressure. As a kid, you want to win. You want to win everything. And so when you're faced with, let's say, an opponent who's just like kicking your butt, you don't know what to do. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's when people started resorting to those things. Of course, it wasn't everyone. It was just you would see that once in a while. But I
Hey, you
think,
had the luxury of calling those refs on court.
yeah, yeah. I mean, those refs were definitely helpful sometimes. Unfortunately, you and Dad know that didn't always work out in my favor. But it was an interesting time, and I think we've all grown up. We've now some of us just laugh about it, looking back
Mm-hmm.
on those years. But I think it's definitely important to just really make sure you're true to yourself throughout the whole
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like I said, being an individual sport, and I've noticed, especially through the years, as I've gotten older, things like the mental side are very important because it kind of gets hard. You've been doing it for so many years, and
Mm-hmm.
you are faced with new things every day, and then it's just it sometimes gets to be a lot. So you just have to keep that positive attitude. I think in my case, I've I've always just been a positive person, so that's kind of helped me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, some people struggle with it, and I think really just staying mentally tough in tennis is probably the most important thing. I would say more so than physically even.
Mm-hmm. And then the support system, has to be right for someone to be able to manage it all. I would say I don't think there's any perfect scenario, but then how we as parents deal with it and what we do to help you guys also, I think, plays an important role. And thankfully you have had some great coaches and someone that can help you, when you wanted to go have a conversation back with them about anything that happened in a tournament? What about the injury side of sport? You have had your fair share of it when you were very young, until, all your ankle problems were sort of, resolved, or kind of, we were able to put a stop to it, knowing that there was something called an orthotic support, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it took a while to get that under control. But
Mm-hmm.
I think, unfortunately I had my fair share, like you said, but I do notice that especially in tennis, as kids get older,
Mm-hmm.
they start to experience more injuries simply because of overuse, all the time spent on court from,
Mm-hmm.
let's say, 6, 7 years. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, some people, I know some of my friends only started playing when they were maybe 12,
Mm-hmm.
whereas I started much earlier. So I think for everyone, there are different things that factor into it, like when you started, so how long you've actually been playing the sport, and then, of course, how long you were training every day. Some people like to spend 5 hours on court.
Mm-hmm.
I was never really like that because I had injuries from such a young age, so I knew that to take care of my body in the long run, I had to be smart about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think going back to the mental side, I think that's when you just really have to hang tough and know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. It can be
Mm-hmm.
super hard in the moment, and you're like, why did this happen to me? Why am I injured? Why am I not playing right now? But it's just the sport.
Yeah, I think, I have to give it to you on that aspect. You handled it all well. That was the time to, enjoy more of those professional matches on tour, sitting on the couch and putting that feet up, right? So it was always
Hmm.
a matter of a few weeks, turning things around and rehabbing, and all those drives back and forth to the physical therapy.
Back in a moment with our guest on Fresh Leaf Forever.
What about the nutrition side of it and fitness? I mean, you pointed out, like some people enjoy hitting tennis balls for 5 hours in a day, and it's a matter of the balancing act. What about even tournaments? Like, is it even a fair game to, or rather an expectation, to fulfill week after week playing tournaments? And how retrospectively, even with your own journey, would you say, like, should we have done something different? How would you categorize that aspect? And
Yeah,
also the importance of pre and post match routine when it comes to the fitness. So we are trying to address, the amount of time that you spend on court and at tournaments, the nutrition aspect and the fitness aspect.
yeah. So I think, like I said earlier, for me, unfortunately, I was injured, or I got injured, even from a young age. But I
Mm-hmm.
think the positive side to that was I kind of learned how to take care of my body.
Mm-hmm. And
Well,
then the identifying that something as simple as, the orthotics, and then keeping up with the fitness regimen, is something that would help you become stronger, right?
right. And then also just so focusing on learning how to take care of my body and then keeping it in shape for the long run. I learned at a pretty young age, so I would, you know this, but I would always balance kind of my time on the court and off in the gym,
Mm-hmm.
whether I was doing like strength, conditioning, whatever it was, just because I knew that's what my body needed to
Mm-hmm.
stay healthy. And I think also looking back, it's important. I mean, we used to play like 2, 3 tournaments every single month,
Mm-hmm.
weekend after weekend, just on the road. And it's a lot. I mean, ideally I do now, which I kind of balance like my time at practice, because I know, okay, I'm going to be playing like 3 days in this tournament. I'm going to be
Mm-hmm.
playing, 4 to 6 matches, whatever it may be. Or
Mm-hmm.
sometimes if I play singles and doubles, that's even more.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think factoring those kind of things in is is important because I think when we're younger, we want to play as much, we want to do everything,
Mm-hmm.
but it starts to add up when you get older. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that load management is important.
Yeah. And what about the pre and post match routine? I mean, at least in your case, you never had the luxury to leave, a match site or like a tournament site, like right when you finished a match, you never could, just throw the bag or toss the bag in the boot and then, like take off, right? And you never did this thing of, okay, I'm just, okay, I'm going for a warm up and then I'm going on court. So, how important is pre and post match routine for someone to be able to keep themselves in shape again?
Yeah, I think the main thing I would say is obviously just like stretching helped me a lot. And then
Mm-hmm.
again, going back to the fact that I got injured when I was so young taught me all of these things that I do up until this day. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think again, right from, when you get to the courts for warm up, making sure you run a little, stretch, get the sweat in, whatever you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's different. Like some people need to do a lot for them to feel good. Some people just need a short warm up, but that depends just on the player. I personally don't really need to hit much before my matches, but I know some people like to hit for, an hour or something
Mm-hmm.
before they go on court. But I think for me it's always been more about getting loose before the match, if that's stretching, if that's like jump roping or running a little, get the heart rate up and the blood flowing. I think that helps me more. And
Mm-hmm.
then, again, after the match, just cool down, stretch, hydrate, those things, kind of just the main things. I think, yeah, as a kid, it's obviously hard. I mean, all you want to do, you're done with your match, you want to get in the AC and you want to, get lunch or whatever. But as we grow up, we realize how important the little things are. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm glad I was able to start doing it from a young age.
Yeah, win or lose, I think, those things really need focus and it may not show up even. I mean, it's not like, you were constantly injured. I mean, although you did have your share of the ankle issues initially, because, like, yeah, you used to be like a tippy toe walker in childhood. And then, like, probably, somewhere along the lines, like there was some balancing that was involved, and the orthotics definitely helped you. And with your being systematic about the pre and post match routine, I think all of that mattered. What about the nutrition side of it?
I think everyone has to find what works for them personally. For
Mm-hmm.
me, we've experimented, found things that have worked, and a lot of people used to ask me like, "Oh, how do you get your protein in if you're like vegetarian?" And I used to,
Mm-hmm.
that's I think a common misconception too. And there are tons of options, tons of different ways to get the nutrients in. And I think people, you just really have to figure it out, whether that what you eat or balancing like when you eat. For example, for me, I didn't need to eat a lot, but I needed some good fuel before matches, whether that
Mm-hmm.
was, just to get some energy, and especially in the summer when it's hot and
Mm-hmm.
you're really working out there. But I know some people who didn't really even eat anything before, and
Mm-hmm.
they could play their match for like 3 hours. So I think it's just really just varies personally, but I think the biggest thing I would say is find the combination that works for you,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's like juices, smoothies, or within foods. Like for me, I found like rice, vegetables,
Mm-hmm.
rice-based products. Those always help me a lot, whether that's like the night before a match or, really whenever, as well as like smoothies and fruit. All of
Mm-hmm.
that really give me good energy. So I think each person is different and they just have to find what works best for them.
Mm-hmm. And then kind of stick to it on a regular basis, right? Not just
Hmm.
on match days, not just, like 11th hour preparation. What about pursuing a full-time program in Tampa in your high school? And how do you think that helped you, or What exactly would you say if we were to look at that phase?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to go to a program in Florida for about a year and a half during high school, and I was able to, again, similar to middle school, it was a place where I could fully focus on tennis and still, know that I was getting the best support academically without
Mm-hmm.
compromising my grades.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that was a great experience. I got to meet a lot of people, a lot of international kids as well.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of professionals used to train there as well and have come up from there. It's called Saddlebrook
Mm-hmm.
Academy in Florida. And so I think that helped me a lot. I was training with different groups of people, different types of players, and really kind of styles that I hadn't always seen before.
Mm-hmm.
From there, I started playing some ITFs, which are international tournaments, basically, or it stands for International Tennis Federation.
Mm-hmm.
So there are tournaments all over the world for that. And that's when I started playing those and kind of got some experience with, again, not just people within the States, but international kids and how their styles were different, how to play against them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was really good for me, and it helped develop my game. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the draw may not always work out in your favor. I definitely know I got my butt kicked a few times, but I think again, all that's just, it helps you grow ultimately.
Yeah, certainly. And also, even in that, start with the J5s, like you have to earn your first points before you can even hope to, find yourself in like a reasonable part of the draw. And also for future tournament selections, start building your points up that way and then proceed to the higher levels playing
Hmm.
there. And also try and find something, locally in your region as much as possible. Sometimes the competition may not be in your favor, so try and travel and do stuff, and that's kind of what we tried to address with that. And you also talked about balancing school tennis and high school course choices. What would you say towards that, in terms of the high school course choices and selection? Like you touched upon, how your journey was kind of, reasonable in terms of how you would balance school and tennis. What about high school, and then further on to tennis recruitment? How did it all matter, or what was the impact that you saw? And I guess, in your case, you got caught up in a year when COVID dominated. So, what is it that you want to say on that front?
Yeah, I definitely think it's really important to, by high school, you kind of know your schedule. At least for me, I did. We
Mm-hmm.
were in tournaments really frequently, almost every weekend, at least twice a month. So I think balancing school around that is really important. I obviously took challenging classes, AP classes, but at the same time, I didn't bombard myself with every single one that was maybe available,
Mm-hmm.
like some kids did. And if you're able to balance both of those, I know some kids who play tennis and other sports who are doing, like 10, 12 APs as well. So I think it's
Mm-hmm.
really just up to you and what you can handle.
Mm-hmm.
I think I knew also going into college, though, I wanted to play for sure. And then I
Mm-hmm.
also wanted to go somewhere that I was academically happy with. So
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I had to still challenge myself and push myself in school at least a little bit to have that to show later
So
on.
kind of see what your goals are and then, make your
Yeah.
course choices accordingly. And of course, at that point, if someone can determine what they want to be in the future, then, that's probably helpful to narrow down on course choices.
Yeah, and I think even if you don't know exactly what you want to do in college, like your major or whatever
Mm-hmm.
that what you want to pursue, I think at least your goals of, what type of school, like for me, I just said I still wanted a place where I knew I was going to get good academic attention or, grow myself in that way as well. But then
Mm-hmm.
I think for certain people, whether it's sports or just other things, they kind of want to focus on that more and they don't mind compromising academics a little bit. But for me, I think I always kind of held myself to a high standard in both. So making sure that I got somewhere which was a good balance was pretty important to me.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, for certain others, I guess the choice may also be due to, maybe a location preference, So on that front, although you and I may see it as, a compromise, that's probably not truly a compromise. And, like certain other factors may be important, which may make them, lean toward a different school, right?
Yep, right.
Okay, and so tennis recruitment, is there something that you want to say as far as tennis recruitment and how to approach it?
So I just think everybody's process is totally different. Everyone's
Uh-huh.
journey is different. So my first piece of advice would probably be don't compare yourself to anybody. Don't feel like, you have to decide by this time or that time or whenever. I
Mm-hmm.
think the biggest thing I've learned is just take your time and make sure you find the best fit possible for you.
Mm-hmm.
For me, obviously, it was different being, trying to get recruited in a pandemic, not
Mm-hmm.
your ideal situation.
Yeah,
But
not being able to play that much, also, and not showcase what you can bring to the table, that was a challenge. And like for so many other players, I mean, I guess, you all went through it.
yeah, I think, like you just said, in our year, there wasn't much of coaches coming to see us play, talking to us in person. That wasn't really an option.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing you could really do was send in your videos of some matches of your game and talk to them over the phone. There was also a ban that the NCAA had
Mm-hmm.
on. It's called like the dead period. So we
Mm-hmm.
couldn't go see the coaches in person. They couldn't see us. We couldn't have any contact in person.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty challenging. I got a lot of offers throughout the whole process. Some, up to my liking, and some I was just not really sure about. But I think
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, I was just, for me, like I committed really late because I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to take my time, really see what school had the best balance of both for me. And then
Mm-hmm.
some schools that I wanted that I talked to, it just didn't really work out, because of things that maybe the coach is looking for or players on the team. And in our case this year, a lot of the players on the team got an extra year of
Mm-hmm.
eligibility due to
Mm-hmm.
COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So that made the process a lot harder as well, because a lot of teams, they just didn't have spots or
Mm-hmm.
scholarships to offer.
Mm-hmm.
I think we dealt with a whole lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Not me, obviously, everyone in my year. I think we found our way through it, and I'm happy to say that I'm committed to Georgia State now
Mm-hmm.
for tennis, and I'm
Hey, proud
excited to
of
get
you.
started there. Thank you.
Proud of you on that achievement. And what about when we look at and reflect on your journey? Um, we said you started with USTA team tennis, then Alta matches, whatever, and then the 10 and under 12, 14, 16, 18, all the way to the ITFs. And now, you're going to be an NCAA collegiate tennis player. How would you say, and we also talked about, week in and week out, like chasing tournaments. So what would you say for any junior tennis player or someone that's aspiring to be a junior tennis player to do? I mean, like, look at the local level tournaments, then, when can they progress to higher level tournaments and then the national level and ITF? What do you want to say for someone listening as to how to approach it?
So in my case, I played local, so only in Georgia, and
Mm-hmm.
then Southern tournaments, which was our region. It was like 7 or 8 states, so everyone
Mm-hmm.
has their different region. And then national tournaments where we would go somewhere and kids from all over the country would come and play there. And
Mm-hmm.
then I was also lucky to play some international tournaments. So
Mm-hmm.
those are kind of the different levels. And I would say when you're really young, obviously getting your experience in the local tournaments is best. As you progress, as you win more and you improve your ranking, that's how you even get selected into tournaments of a higher level.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just really important to play the tournaments. Try to find as many as you can, and that's how you develop your game, because you see what you're doing well, you see what you need to work on, you go and improve that in practice, and then you come back. On the same token, for me, because of some injuries, like I said, I kind of balanced it more, and that's not to say, don't go train a lot, don't go hit a lot. For some people, they may prefer more on court time. They may prefer more time in the gym. It's really a personal preference, but I would say really make sure you do find your balance, because the last thing you want is to kind of spend all your time out there, and then you're getting held back by injuries or anything later. So I would just say that finding the balance is the most important thing.
Yeah, I think you have sent that message loud and clear several times here during the course of our conversation. Hey, I think, we have seen Coco Gauff, we have seen the Williams sisters. I think they focused on what they needed to do, and they have definitely, got to the pinnacle of tennis. Is there anything else you would like to say as far as how we as parents, what is it that we did right? What is it that we did wrong? Or, like anything that you felt things could have been different and something that the whole tennis world can benefit from? And what about, you talked about ranking and building a ranking and getting selected into tournaments. And I think one was, the USDA ranking system. And of course, certain things may have changed from what you did to what it is right now as of today. And there's also UTR. If you were to throw in your 2 cents on all of that, what is it that you would tell folks that are listening?
Yeah, I mean,
and
I think
feel free to say we did something wrong, of course, this is something for everyone to learn from.
Yeah, no, I think you and Dad have always been really supportive of me, and I'm not just saying that to say it. It's true, and I think it's a lot of sacrifice, right? Because you know what it takes. I mean, on the road, like every single weekend, going here, going there, spending the weekend in a hotel, eating out
Hey,
the whole
thank you.
time.
That's so kind of you.
And also we've seen a lot of families, bring their siblings. So kind of it's a team effort from everyone to like come and just drop their weekend or drop their day to come watch you, support you, help you with everything that you need. So I think honestly, like the most important part was just having you guys like always support me and encourage me, and just a good support system, more than like, oh, like you didn't win your match, like it's the end of the world. Because unfortunately, like we've seen that too. Some parents were like that, and it's just, I don't think it was anybody's fault, but it's just a learning curve for everyone. I think just being there for your kid and just supporting them is the most important thing. And as far as UTR, so it's kind of just another number system to differentiate you from your peers. Ranking is more of just like the plain number, and then UTR, it goes from 1 to 16, and it's just like 16 being the best. So everyone, including professional tennis players, are on UTR. That's the highest, obviously 1 being the lowest. And it's just, I think, a different way to measure your level. And then depending on who you play, if you beat them, it goes up. If you lose to someone lower than you, it's going to go down. At the same time, if you play someone who is a lot higher than you and you don't win, but you still compete well, you get some games, that's going to help you too. So it's evolving. I mean, they're just different ways to measure you as a player, really. But numbers don't always mean everything. So I would just say that try your best, work hard, and it'll all fall in place.
Oh, what a nice way to, just culminate this conversation. I think that's a great message to send. And so much fun talking to you on the podcast. Of course, we have our moments in the house, like talking, fighting, whatever that may be, arguing, not necessarily fighting, but just figuring out certain things, sharing opinions, if you will. But this was fun, and I had a great time chatting with you here on the podcast. It was a different experience interviewing my own daughter.
Yeah, it was fun to see you in your element.
Oh, that's kind. Thank you so much. And listeners, as always, follow the podcast, and I'll be sure to bring different topics with some very important people and people that can offer expertise and on that space and front. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at YP Kumar for all things digital media and lifestyle. And I'll be sure to catch up with you again with yet another interesting guest. And until then, it's your host, Vi, saying so long.